PatZi with a Z. Welcome to Joy on Paper Live, a program for writers and those who dream of writing, and for everyone who wants to know the story behind the book. And today I have a very special author with me, and her name is Joan Cohen, and I have something special for her. So, just a minute, and you'll see a little video that I've done just for her and for her book because I think it's a fascinating book. It's called The Deepfake. And part of her storyline is about AI. And I thought, well, what better than to see a little bit about AI? So here we go. And then we'll get to meet Joan. Hey, Joan. Nice to see you.
Good to see you too.
Okay, well, I did that little video for you. I thought it'd be a nice introduction since you do have AI in your book. And I thought, what better way? People don't know what's going on with AI. We're all afraid of it. So I just want to ask you a question that I am now asking everybody who is either on my radio program or appears here on Joy on Paper Live. Are you real?
Yes,
You're
real and mortal.
you're
Both.
sure. You're sure about
I'm
that.
positive.
You're not a bot. They haven't, and you're not a clone.
I am not.
Okay.
I'm
Well,
one of a
good.
kind.
That's what we want. We want one of a kind people who have all these wonderful thoughts in their head. I don't care what they say about AI. You cannot combine all the wonderful things that are in our heads. No bot could ever get into my head. I have read over 10,000 books, and no AI could think, even I don't care how many books, how I combine those books in so many different ways in my head, and suddenly something comes out. One of the interesting things about me is when I started the program, I had read 10,000 books. Now, of course, in 9 years, I just celebrated the 9th anniversary of Joy on Paper, the radio program. I read another 2,000. I read a lot. And I don't have one of those eidetic memories that I remember everything, but I have a strange thing, and this is very unusual. I can remember page 38 of books. For some reason, I can recall the entire page 38 of books that I've read like 20, 30 years ago. So it's weird, but I don't believe an AI is ever going to replace me. If they did, then they'd look younger, would they? But anyway, I thought, well, this would be fun to, first of all, get to talk to you about the deep fake and this wonderful book that I see that you won something great. So I'm going to let you tell the story. Let's first talk about Sylvie, because the question in my video promo there for you was, who is Sylvie? Tell us the storyline, and then after that, we'll talk about AI, okay?
Okay. Well, I probably should start though by saying what a deep fake is because people may not know. A deep fake is a fake that's online and it's an image that is false, although it looks for all the world like it's real. It's been created by artificial intelligence. Sylvie is a young woman who works for a software company, and that company sells some AI enhancements to their software. She thinks that AI is great. I mean, why not? And it's a hot field, it's growing fast. And she really has no reason to question it until she starts going to the gym in her building, where it's a small gym where you work with a personal trainer. And the personal trainer she's assigned to, who happens to be very good-looking young
A,
man.
a
That's
hunk, a real hunk.
yes. I mean, the book is not a romance per se, but there's definitely chemistry between them. The only problem is he hates AI. He hates and fears it and thinks it's very risky for humanity. And so the two of them get into arguments, which is hard. It's hard to do when you're exercising your abs or trying to do rows with free weights. Anyway, she's all in with AI until she discovers that some activities going on in her company are illegal, and then she gets a little turned off. She thinks of herself as a team player, but really, I would describe her as a people pleaser. But to her, team player sounds a lot better. You can only please just so many people, as everyone knows, without getting into trouble. And she can't be everybody's ally, especially because some of the people for whom she's an ally want her to do things that of questionable ethically, if not legally. So it gets to be a big problem and becomes complicated by the fact that her family, she has family living in Florida. She lives and works in the Boston area where there are a lot of technology companies. But her mother and stepfather live in Florida, and she has two stepbrothers, and she becomes ensnared in family politics, um, and a past relationship, and the two become intertwined in a way that I think is very typical. We may not have family in another state, but it's very hard to keep your personal life and your professional life separate. I mean, you have to be very good at compartmentalizing. And though a lot of people think they can, I think in practice it's difficult. And I think a lot of women, I don't want to generalize because I think that the younger generation is somewhat different. But I know when I was growing up, women were in the helping professions. They were teachers, nurses, social workers. They were not hedge fund managers, and they were not software engineers. Part of being in a helping profession is that you try to please people. It's part of the goes with the territory. And if it's no longer true that it's women who mostly are people pleasers, then why, if you go to Amazon, do you find tons of books on aimed at women about how to stop people pleasing, how to develop your self confidence, how to ask for a raise. It goes on and on. All the self help books, and while men, of course, can be people pleasers too, it seems to be largely an affliction of women, and I think it's cultural in origin. Sylvie finds out that that is just not working. And the book, uh, the a deep fake makes her a victim. I really don't want to go
No,
into
no,
that.
I was gonna say, let's
Yeah,
not give away because there are so many nuances to this story
yeah.
and interesting characters and things that happen between well in the family, within the family,
Hmm.
also with our our very healthy hunk. He has his own family situation and his own
Yes.
things that he perhaps wants to live up to. A very interesting father himself, and so there's a lot of it's very nuanced, it's multi-level, and I think that's one of the reasons why, as right now on the screen people can see, that you got a starred review from Kirkus. So it's that's pretty great.
Yes, thank you. Well, I used to say that the only two advantages of growing old were that you don't make as many bonehead mistakes as you did when you were young, and usually you have better jewelry. But actually, there's a third benefit, and And that is, you get to see a lot in life, and everything is nuanced. That's why people try very hard not to think. I mean, if things can be black and white, I mean, it's so much easier.
But on the other hand, that's why your book is so interesting, because of those levels, because there are incidents and things that happen that people will definitely relate to, and I think that's part of the fun and why the reviews are great. I know book number 1, your first book, which one, what it came out when?
2019.
And before the, well, during the pandemic then.
That was before. Yeah, just
Just
before.
before. So that was
Yes,
Land of Last
chances.
Last Chances, Land of Last Chances, and that also was critically acclaimed. But of course, you had so many problems there during that time to, well, simply it was simply a difficult time to promote. Now you have a much better chance to get out there and promote, right?
Yes, I badgered my publisher to bring out the book sooner. The publishers got kind of backed up because of the pandemic too, so things took a little longer. And I kept saying to her, I had to revise this manuscript a whole bunch of times while I was writing it because the technology kept changing, and I kept writing about things that were obsolete. So please hurry up and put this thing out the door. And I promise my next book is going to be historical fiction where I know it isn't going to change.
Well, let's talk about the AI aspects of the book and the research, as you said, that you did into it and what you discovered.
Fascinating. I mean, if you go Google AI and ethics, AI ethics, you will find everybody under the sun with an opinion about um, whether there's any way that AI can be ethical. And if you are a software engineer, you're just trying to develop the most advanced software you can, and you're not necessarily thinking about the consequences. And of course, AI has conferred wonderful advantages on us and will continue to, particularly in fields like medicine, where it can create new proteins, and it can do a better job of genetic engineering than our scientists can do now. It's really a marvel. But of course, the flip side of the coin is uh, a lot of bad things could happen. And if you regulate, I don't even know how you could, but if you regulate AI in this country, that doesn't mean that our adversaries are going to regulate it in their own countries. This is a competition. And I think it's obvious that even if we don't want to see AI in our everyday lives, it's the military has many uses. It's already in drones, and that's how they do what they do. And I just don't see any way of slowing it down. So I think we have to figure out how to live with it.
Did you do a lot of reading about it? What else? How did you get this background?
Well, in my career, I worked for technology companies. I wasn't really a technologist. I mean, I wasn't a software engineer, except in the beginning, I was a programmer. But I had an interest all my life since I was in that field. And I was in sales and marketing for much of that time. And one of the criticisms that the physical trainer levels at Sylvie is that she's in sales, she's selling an AI based solution, and that makes her an advocate. And she doesn't think, she just, I'm a salesman, I'm not taking sides. And he says, but you are, you're pushing it, so you're an advocate. I did a lot of online research. I mean, the internet is a gift to writers because we don't have to be in the library looking at a million references. But I've just always had an interest in this field. And if you read a newspaper, which of course a lot of people don't do anymore, there are articles every single day about AI and how it's being used. Really, people tell me that they don't know anything about it and they don't want to know anything about it. It's with us. When you use Google, you're using AI because algorithms are directing you to an answer. When we get in our cars, we're using AI. If we talk to Siri or Alexa, we're using AI. So it's, I mean, and refrigerators can use AI and I don't know, tell you when your perishables are about to expire. I don't know, not in my house, but maybe
I can't afford that one.
no, and I would never buy it, but I mean, I'd probably be criticized because my refrigerator's not clean enough. But it's just, it's with us already. You know, do you understand it? Because there's no need to understand what makes the wheels turn. It's only to understand how it's being used, what the consequences are, and are they all good or are some bad? I think some are terrible. But I don't know, I don't have an answer. And that's part of why I write is I find it interesting to write about things that I don't have the answer to. Because then I can have my characters ask the questions and bounce things off each other and criticize each other. And it's interesting for me. So then I hope it's interesting for the reader.
Well, I think it is, and of course the book makes it very, I think, exactly what you write about. Sylvie's a salesperson. She thinks
Hmm,
what she's doing is good. It's
sure.
just like, but on the other
It's
hand,
like selling a can opener.
yeah, there were salespeople who were selling drugs that turned out
Right.
not to be good, and so you have that. There is, I
That's a good
suppose,
analogy.
exactly. So,
Oxycodone.
yeah, exactly. They were out there selling it like crazy, and at some point they must have known because they had to know. I know I talked to a nurse in the hospital one time. She said it was those people who put those happy faces on the wall or unhappy faces, and they hoped that when the nurses would see that you put an unhappy face, then the next thing they just prescribe one of these very bad drugs for you. And people, human beings, you're in a hospital, you're not really feeling that good, it doesn't matter if you're in pain or not. So you put a sad face and you don't realize that sad face immediately triggered giving you some drug. So it's very hard, and that's why your book, as I said, it's nuanced and it's interesting, and I think people will enjoy reading that, and discovering what you discovered. And wow, there's so many things that we have to do, and as writers, for writers, it's particularly bad because I just recently
Oh,
had an interview with an author who, within a few days of his book being released, there, he went to Amazon, he looked, and underneath him were two books with the same name, and they
you
had
can't
taken,
copyright a title.
yeah, they had taken, no, they had taken his book. One had taken his book
Ah,
and done the same book, and that one turned out to be the exact same book, and then the other one took the book but changed the names, and even changed, now it's about a lawyer and it's about him, so he was the lawyer involved in the case, and it changed him into a female, so he was he was you know just a few little changes that they made,
yeah,
but this happened within a few days,
that's
and
terrible.
he had to have a big fight with Amazon and a big fight with the other organizations. There's a couple other people who were involved, and it was traced back to exactly this, to an AI program that had done this. Authors don't check their Amazon page every day, but
Right.
like he said, his book was selling for what, 24.99, and the book right underneath him was for 5.99, and he said even my relatives would be happy to pay 5.99. So
right.
you have this serious problem.
Yes, I agree with you. And there are lawsuits because the people who create the artificial software capabilities uh, load tons and tons of data. That means like all the books, you've read 30,000 books, well, so has the AI software engine. It's had all these books entered in, and then it goes through all of that data, and it has the ability, it's built on neural network, just like our brains, to learn and then extrapolate. Authors are suing the handful of companies who make the AI solutions that are available now because that's their own
Yeah,
copyrighted.
they're
I mean, you
just
can't copyright the title, but your book is has a copyright, and they really don't have the right to take it without paying you. But I mean, the New York Times is suing because all the content of all the New York Times articles are being loaded in, and they're saying, "Hey, people are paying for the New York Times. You can't just take it and
I
use it
know.
to make
It's
your AI model smarter."
Yeah, it's frightening. Well, so I think that's one of the reasons I decided to do this YouTube channel because, talking it actually happened to me a little while back on the radio. I got an author, I got a book, I got suspicious, and I allowed the author to come on, and my first question was, "Are you real?" But by that point, I realized that the person wasn't because I'd already investigated the person or whatever it was. Because I had discovered there was no social media, no Facebook, no Twitter, nothing. Now, authors are on a lot of
Right,
different ones.
right.
So the first thing I said, "Are you real?" And this thing, whatever, if it was a person or a bot or whatever, yeah, and I said, "Well, why aren't you on social media?" And the response was, "Oh, I don't like social media. I don't believe in it. I like to be private." And I thought, okay, show me an author who wants to be private. I don't care. It
Yes.
doesn't happen. I knew. So I just, and I quickly got rid of it, but I wanted the proof that somebody was doing this. So,
And
and
you're wise
yeah,
because we're going to see more and more of that. I mean, Sylvie spends some time musing about way off in the future when there are robots that are so lifelike that I mean, they could convince you of anything. There were, I read online from certain people in the clergy saying, well, what if a robot wanted to join our congregation? I mean, if they were sophisticated enough to express feelings of spirituality, how do you know the difference between a person who has spiritual feelings and a robot that for
I
all the
know
world.
exactly.
I
So, I
mean,
mean,
this is not a concern in my life, but I feel bad for my kids and my grandkids because I don't know what's coming.
that's true. We don't know what they're going to do, and already AI, the way that they are stealing voices, and they've done all
Yes.
of these scams where they call parents, and a kid will say, "Mom, Dad, I'm in trouble. I'm here, and you have to send me $50 so I can come home." And it's just AI,
Yes.
and the
We're
parents were
pretty, oh, I was going to say is it will lead ultimately to us to mistrust reality. I mean, if you can't tell if the news you read on your computer is real news or if I mean we have disinformation and misinformation now, but what if it's just everywhere and you feel like you need to shut down because you can't believe anything?
Yeah, it's true. And I mean, that's why in my own personal family, I've given them passwords words that they have to repeat to me if ever there would be that no one would know. Just absolute,
That's smart.
safe words. So I know something's real because I started when heard about this, getting these telephone calls. I was imagining if I'd get a call like that from a friend or somebody or a relative and said, I'm in desperate. And because, when you have relatives overseas, you have relatives in other countries, and you never know when they're desperate, because things happen. Um,
Right.
they're in the middle of a revolution, or they're in the middle of, some disaster. You have to nowadays do that. Have a safe word that they know only to use, at a critical moment.
There'll be more and more of that because we'll need to defend ourselves. I mean, it's just the other side of the coin from the huge benefits that are coming to every industry: banking, finance, education, medicine. It's going to make a huge difference and be very beneficial. And then you have this whole dark side, and it is going to make life more difficult for all of us.
I like that you make some literary references in your book. You quote Hawthorne, which is nice. Not many people read Hawthorne, so I thought that was pretty good.
Well, yeah, I read a lot of American literature in college because I just loved it, and and Hawthorne was one of my favorites. Uh,
Uh,
I love that story about the birthmark.
It's
I mean, I
beautiful.
love a lot of the stories. So
Yeah. Well, his
I
his
mean,
stories are great.
yeah, and
It,
there are
it,
lessons to be learned.
a lot of lessons from his writing.
Yeah,
He's just great. And of course, you mentioned which of the Brontes you mentioned. Well, Wuthering Heights. Who do you like, Mr.
yeah.
Rochester, Darcy, or Heathcliff?
Uh, well, Mr. Darcy. I'm for Mr. Darcy, but
Yeah.
I'm for the women in those novels. I just, if in a good book, it's sometimes difficult to decide. I took a writing class once a long time ago where the person teaching it said, "Your villain cannot be a caricature. You have to make your villain someone who is so believable that the reader is tempted to sort of see things from that point of view, because that's what's real."
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a great, yeah. It's so important, really. It, well, of course, you've studied writing, and for all of those people out there who are just starting to write, um, just read more. That's all I can say. Read more, and don't just read in your genre. Like if you're a cozy mystery author, don't just read cozy mysteries. If you're a thriller writer, don't just read thrillers. Read the classics. Read a lot of nonfiction. Just read, and fill your mind. You're in fact your own little brain that you think is a little brain can take a lot of information in, and then you can come out with original ideas that no AI will ever be able to replicate.
I think that's good advice. I would also tell writers who are just starting out to not be hypercritical of themselves. It's very easy to write a page, go away, come back the next day, and just say, "That's garbage. I'm not any good." It's like the old adage, it doesn't have to be perfect, but it has to get done. It's the same in writing. Just write. And most of the work of writing happens in revision. But if you can create a first draft without telling yourself at every paragraph that you're really no good, you can then you have an entity, and it's a lot easier to go back and go deeper on the characters, or uh, we all have things that we're not good at, and we need to go back and fix those things before we send our books out into the world.
And that's part of the fun. You have to enjoy that part. I
Yeah.
love the editing part too. So Okay, well, it's been just so much fun to talk to you, Joan. It's wonderful. I'm so happy with your book and so glad that you got this lovely award. It's always nice to get a starred review. And so, have a website.
Yes. Am on social media because if you have a publicist when you write a book and you tell them that you don't like social media, that's, forget it. They just say, okay, I don't want to hear that. I have a website. It's joancohenauthor.com. And I am on Facebook. And if you look up Joan Cohen author, you'll get to my Facebook site. I don't really do too much with anything else right now. I mean, as I said, I have a website. That's the best way to reach me.
Okay, well, Joan, thank you so much for being on Joy on Paper Live. It's so nice that we get to see you and see that you're real and really interesting too. You did a great job with this book, and I'm sure you're working on the next book.
I am. And thank you for inviting me. I'm
well, you,
very interested.
well, you're welcome. You're one of my first guests, and it's a pleasure to talk to you. Just let me know when the next book is out, and I will make sure that you're back here so you can talk about it. Because The Deepfake by Joan Cohen is really great. It's an interesting read, and it will make you think. It will make you think about a lot of things. One about your family too, as well as everything else. Again, Joan, thank you so much for being on Joy on Paper today.
Thank you.
Okay, well, it was nice to talk to Joan, and here I am in my spaceship. Well, maybe I'm not real. I don't know. Well, I feel a little real today. I'm hungry. Um, okay, well, I have some upcoming guests in May that are, I mean, they are just fantastic people. Douglas Brunt, who was the fourth guest on Joy on Paper, the radio program. And then, of course, Tasha Alexander. I'm okay, and I'm back for a few minutes. If you could please help me and all the book lovers out there, subscribe, like, comment, and share so that I can bring you more authors who will tell you the stories behind their books. And if you are a book lover, join me. And if you are a dog lover, stay tuned for this little dog story because you really should be reading to your dog. So here goes.